Today's guest is a truly inspiring lady, Dannii Mathers. Danni has over 20 years sales experience and operates in the field of executive leadership coaching. In this episode, Danni truly shows vulnerability around a number of different subject areas, including eating disorders, neurodiversity, how her journey to getting a diagnosis of ADHD has had such an impact in her life, to understanding her past, both personally and professionally, and actually getting the answers that she needed to truly flourish. This is an episode you definitely don't want to miss.
Hi Danni, welcome to the podcast and thank you for joining today.
Thank you for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure to turn up today. Thank you.
Amazing. Danni, introduce yourself if you will, but talk to the listeners and to me. Could you tell us who you are personally, professionally and emotionally?
Okay, I'll start off with who I am professionally because that's probably the easiest one to blurt out. So my name's Dannii Mathers. I am a sales and leadership coach and I work with businesses and individuals, predominantly women when I work with individuals. Personally, I'm a batty wife. I'm an active mum, and I would like to say I'm an explorer. So I love to explore, love to travel, anything that gets me out of the house, really. And emotionally, I would say I am an empath. If my dog hurts his paw, I'll be limping around the house with him in pain. So I literally feel everybody's pain. I love to make really deep connections. I think it's probably what brought me into coaching because I really like to understand what people are going through and probably feel it a little bit too much to the detriment of myself, really.
So talk to me a bit more about the coaching side of things. How long have you been doing it now?
So coaching I have been doing professionally for about 4 years.
Okay.
But I've been in sales leadership roles for over 10 years now. So although I've not been doing it from a qualified space, I have been coaching people for many, many years. And it was a huge passion of mine. So the part of the role I absolutely loved was working with people to really develop them and help them find what their true potential was. And I think it came from a place of when I was in sales back in the day where coaching wasn't really a thing. You were just told to get on and shut up and do the number. Coaching wasn't really a thing. So you just had to find your way yourself and you had to deal with your own demons yourself. There was no one there that said, do you know what? It's okay to not know what you're doing. Yeah. It's okay to feel incapable or not good enough or vulnerable. Nobody gave me that hand when I was younger. It's very male dominated.
Yep.
I'm not saying that male leaders are not empathetic or they don't coach first, but typically from my experience, I would say the majority of my male leadership bosses have been very much like that. So going through my career, I thought, well, I want to be something very different to the people that I work with. I want to help them on their journey, not just help them to achieve their number, but help them grow professionally and personally as well. So from being in a sales leadership role, I then kind of diverted and wanted to qualify as a coach because I thought, well, if I'm coaching people daily, I want to make sure that I'm giving them the best practices and that I'm doing the right by them as opposed to what I think I should be doing. So I went off to study and turned out to be a coach a number of years later.
That's amazing. And you mentioned that primarily women that you tend to focus on. Is there any particular reason as to why you sort of have a preference or sort of specialise really on supporting females?
Yeah, I would say it's more of women tend to come to me first as opposed to men. And I'm not saying that's because women feel like they need more help, but sometimes they can be more in tune with, I guess, acknowledging where their development areas are. And I think in the workplace, especially in sales, women feel like they've got more to prove and they feel like they've got to fight a little bit harder. I mean, I certainly did throughout my career. So it's not that I choose to work with women, but I feel it's that burning desire to empower women to say, do you know what? You have got this. Yeah. You might not have anyone in your corner telling you that you've got this, but I want to be that person. Yeah. So I would say predominantly the women that I work with, they've not all got imposter syndrome, but they've got this element of doubting themselves and just not feeling like they are good enough or that they are valued in their workplace or that they can do the job that the men do. And they feel like they're in a very much so a lack of diverse situation. So when women come to me, it's like, yes, we are going to do this. We're going to work together. And it brings me so much joy, because I wish I had that when I was younger. And not even that I wish I had it, I wish I seeked it.
Yeah.
But probably just didn't have the knowledge and awareness that coaching is there to help empower you and to help you believe in yourself, as opposed to typically what a mentor would do, where you're going there to learn from their experience.
So it's interesting, you've touched upon imposter syndrome, and I think no doubt for many, many listeners, it affects most people, right? I think we're human beings, and we care and we overthink, and it gets quite debilitating. But if you think back to your journey, and that could be childhood through to professional career, but have there been pockets where you've felt overwhelmed and felt vulnerable and potentially experienced imposter syndrome yourself?
Oh, absolutely. Like, I would say every year of my life, and still today. And I think when you understand what imposter syndrome is, and that it's actually a positive, it's not a negative, but I didn't realize that before. And I think when you start looking at it all, framing it in a different way. So when you're experiencing imposter syndrome, you're going through development, you're going through growth, you're going through a time in your life where you'll feel uncomfortable. You've not done this before. And that's when the imposter sits in. So I always say to people, if you're going through imposter syndrome, well done you, because you are going through transformation. Like, take it and run with it and tell everybody. Whereas when I was going through it, when I was like, I don't feel good enough. Oh, don't want nobody know. And to say it is almost like you feel shameful.
I was going to say, it's the shame that you carry along with that, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think now it's celebrating those moments of feeling like, I don't know where I belong here. I don't know if I do belong. And then you kind of get really overwhelmed and just fearful. But let's face it.
Are there any particular environment, situations that you would feel more triggered, and maybe you'd feel that imposter syndrome would kick in more?
I'd say over my career, again, being in sales, especially technology sales, it's been very male dominated.
Yeah.
So I think having to almost prove yourself that little bit more, having to speak a little bit louder, even working with a lot of male clientele, it's almost like, what does she know? And I think you have to work that bit harder, give yourself more credibility, go away, and which, to be honest, all these things that you have to do to try and prove yourself are all development building anyway. They're all great for yourself. But I just think it's sad that women feel they have to go that extra mile to get to earn that voice at the table, to get that place. Whereas guys can just naturally show up and feel like, okay, I got this. But I think women do second guess themselves a lot, which is just really, it's sad, but I certainly have experienced that many, many times throughout my career.
How do you combat that? Because I guess it's, this is something that will resonate with a lot, men and women. I think it's a big subject area. You're experienced, I know you very well, you've had a fantastic career, so no doubt you've overcome that feeling of imposter syndrome, and you've had different methods that you've used. So yeah, could you maybe give us an idea in terms of the sorts of things that you do to help combat that? I mean, you don't eradicate it, I appreciate, but how do you cope with that feeling, or that overwhelming feeling of imposter syndrome, or doubt yourself? What do you do? Own it.
So for me, it's owning that moment where you feel uncomfortable.
What does that mean, own it, though? What do you do?
Saying it out loud.
Okay.
So so for example, if you're working with a leader, or you're working with a peer or colleague, whoever it might be, rather than holding it inwards and thinking, oh, I've got to keep this to myself, or I can't let these people know that I don't belong here, or that I'm not good enough. Own it and admit, and just say it out loud and say, do you know what? I don't actually know what I'm doing in this situation. Yeah. I'm gonna go and get help.
Yep.
I'm gonna find out what it is I need to do to be better. I'm going to improve my skills in this area, but I'm gonna need some extra support. And the confidence and conviction in your voice way outweighs that fear of not being good enough. Because if you suffer in silence and people don't actually know that you're struggling, that comes off far worse, because then it looks like you're incompetent because you can't manage or you can't deal. I think you'll be surprised how many people will help you once you ask for help.
100%. And
however that looks, is it a mentor? Is it a coach? And I think the the problem is the fear of asking for help because we seem like we're not good enough. We feel like we're incompetent. That's so much more damaging. And it's knowing where to get that help. So for example, if it's public speaking or if it's storytelling, I don't feel like I can do, well, try and break down what is the part of the role that you feel you're not very good at, because it won't be the whole thing. There are elements of the role that you'll do really well, and that's the part people believe in. But where that imposter creeps in, there will be an element in that role that maybe you're not proficient at. Great, find out what that is, put a plan together, and then actively work towards being proficient. If you don't put a goal in terms of this is the skill I'm going to work towards, this is what I know I'm not very good at, how do you measure what you can't see? How do you know that you're actually improving in something? But that will soon validate that internal critic of I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
If you see yourself improve, it's like, okay, I've done that once, it felt really uncomfortable, somebody's given me feedback, now I've done it again and I improved. But I think, again, if you don't vocalize what those areas are where you feel a little bit uncomfortable, people can't help you.
But it's, you're right. It's all about communication, isn't it? It's actually, when you say own it, it is absolutely that. It's saying it out loud. It's putting your hands up and saying, I'm not comfortable. I do feel vulnerable. I don't have the skills. I do need help. And I think actually so many of us, it is that fear. It is that feeling of shame. It is fear of judgment from others that prevents us from actually showing up authentically. And I think that is so, so important, isn't it? But at home and in the workplace, you want to own your identity. You want to be proud of who you are.
Yeah.
And the only way we learn is when we, when we hands up admit that maybe we there are gaps, It's okay to have gaps, and it's okay that you're not 100% the finished article, but you've got to own that, and you've got to be face forward, be willing to ask the right questions and reach out for help. And I think that's important, isn't it?
Yeah, and when none of us are the finished article, we're not all completely polished. And I think the problem is when you look, and this is no doubt where some of the imposter syndrome stem from when I was like growing through my career, is back then, and this is very different in the world that we live in now, but back then, leaders don't show vulnerabilities. They don't show failure. They don't hold their hand up and say, I'm accountable for this and I've done it wrong, or let's work together again and let's get this right.
Yeah.
Perhaps there's lessons that I can learn from this. Leaders don't show their vulnerabilities. And I think if you're living in a world where failure isn't accepted, of course you're going to feel scared. Of course you're going to feel fearful of, well, everybody's perfect around here and I can't get something wrong. And then it inhibits you from trying.
Yeah.
Whereas in a world where, and especially this is how I've been with my teams, and I know you certainly are with your teams, it's the moment you show that it's okay to be vulnerable, the minute you show that, hey, hang on, when I've done public speaking before, I didn't sleep for 2 weeks. When I did this before, this is what happened to me. I was so scared. When you show people your emotion and show people how you're...
Normalize it,
Yeah, absolutely. Or if you say, one example I remember, so maths, me and maths. If I could carry a secret calculator around me everywhere, I would have done. And it's because it was my fear, it's just something I didn't really enjoy. I'm much more creative, I love English, love writing. So some of the areas that I guess a mathematician wouldn't enjoy so much. But I felt so ashamed of not loving maths, of not being very good at maths, that I would hide it, and just feel really incompetent. And I always remember one leader that I worked with a number of years ago. We're in a meeting and she stood up and she said, I am really shit at maths. She said, and she owned it. So someone else is going to have to help me out here. I know what I'm good at, but that's not one of my strengths. And I was in awe of these words that came out of her mouth, because I thought, people don't admit that they're not good at stuff. People, they hold that, they keep that to themselves. And the way that she normalized not being very good at something, immediately I just felt
comforted.
Yeah, I thought, it's not just me.
Yeah.
It's not just me that feels very uncomfortable around having to try and work out loads of figures. And since that, I think from that moment, I thought, I need to be more true to myself, because why am I pretending that that I understand all this? Who does it benefit?
Yeah.
I'm lying to myself and I'm lying to people around me. So from then, I've always been congruent with people around me, people on my teams, on what my strengths are and what my weaknesses are. And I think that just opens up an environment of people not being scared to try, people not being scared to fail, people giving, like, backing themselves,
Yeah.
rather than trying to always be something that maybe they're not. Whereas you nurture the good parts that they are, let that part shine, and help them on development plans for the areas that maybe they're not so good at.
Yeah, I love that. But you're right. It's ultimately giving others a platform or permission to just show up as they are, and actually it's okay that you're not the same as the next person, and rightly so. You shouldn't be. We're all unique, and it's okay to be unique and different from the next person. How much? I mean, there's evidence to show, obviously, that, you know, from childhood through to adolescence and then into your sort of your adult life, that, you know, your childhood does play a part to a degree. And I guess how much baggage we carry forward is ultimately a decision on our side. But would you say that your childhood had any form of impact in terms of maybe the lack of confidence or the imposter syndrome, or what you maybe carried forward? Does that have any relevance at all for you?
Yes, I would say, and again, I think learning as much as I have throughout my life, before I would have probably felt embarrassed about my childhood, or, you know, I didn't go to a very good school, lived in a council estate. I had food on the table, I had a roof over my head, I had a dysfunctional family, but I had a family, and I think, growing up, it was almost like, oh, if I only had a different, you know, if I only went to a better school, if I only lived in a nicer area, if I only had a nicer house, all these elements that I thought impacted my self-esteem growing up, because it was almost like this embarrassment of where I grew up. And now I look at it and I'm very thankful. And I'm very thankful because it meant that I tried so much harder. I never took anything for granted. So I would do the additional work. I would try and, whether it was read that extra book or study harder or be more curious to want to know how people got to where they got to. And I tried and I tried and I tried. And I worked so hard throughout my career, which paid dividends. I climbed very high in my career very rapidly. And I put that down to never feeling good enough, so always having to do more. So I again, if you were to ask me this question 10 years, I might have been a bit of a victim and been like, oh, I didn't have a great opportunity. I went to a really bad school, and, you know, we probably didn't have the best friendship group, not friendship groups, but social circles in terms of the environment, you know, drugs, alcohol. Sorry, Mum, not the drugs part, but the alcohol, but people that you surround yourself by. It absolutely has an effect on how you grow up and the things that you see, but you've almost got to put a line under it and be like, okay, well, what would if I had a privileged life? How would I have turned out? Because I know a lot of privileged people who don't work very hard and who didn't get very far in life and who had relied on their parents for absolutely everything. Is that the road I would have wanted to have taken? No, it's not. So now I think, after doing reflection and just gratitude, I'm thankful for the upbringing I had, because nothing was ever given to me, so I had to fight for it, very much like yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And what's not to be proud of with that?
And I think you inevitably inherit a feeling of gratitude as well, and I don't know, I think you almost become kinder to yourself as well. I think when you get to a certain point in your life, you can reflect, as you say, on the journey, and, you know, it's those chapters that ultimately shape you and make you who you are today. And maybe it is that chip on the shoulder or the fight that you had to put up to actually have your voice heard, to believe in yourself, I think, you know, to have that self-belief and the willingness to face forward and want to make something of yourself. And as you say, you know, maybe without those challenging chapters, maybe that wouldn't have been possible. So you can hardly wish they didn't happen, because where we are now would look completely different as well. What would you say, if you look back on your life to date, what would you say has been the most challenging chapter for you, and why?
So I would say there's been a number of chapters that have aggregated into a moment in my life, shall I say, where I've had this realization, or awakening sounds probably a little bit corny, but being a coach, you have to be very reflective. You have to really understand as much about yourself as you want to about the person that's sat in front of you that you're coaching. Yeah. So it's really important that you invest a lot of time in understanding what are your biases, what judgments do you have, and looking at your blind spots, looking at your areas of growth, your areas of development, and it's a continual journey. You can't ever stop that. I have a coach, I have supervisors. It's work that you continually need to put into yourself to check yourself. Yep. And you get into the practice of journaling, the practice of just reflective practice in general. And one of the things that I realized, so looking back through my journey, my life journey, is there's been a number of patterns, a number of trends when I look at the way that I've internalized things, how I've acted, how I've behaved. When I start looking at all those patterns, so for me, it would be things like running away really quickly. So I'd run away from relationships. I'd get out really quick. I'd go from relationship to relationship. I would go from job to job. And I found that very easy to do. And I'd always question myself thinking, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't I just commit to something? What's wrong? And always chasing the next thrill, the next high, the next whatever would be that I seemed or that I deemed to be exciting. And I was aware that I had these traits. And again, doing my reflective practice, it was more of a, what is wrong with me? Why am I like this? I'm aware of it. I know I've got these patterns, but why am I like this? And I always remember reading a social media post, and a woman she was stating all of these traits that she has. And I was reading through all these traits. I was like, oh, that's the same as me. That's also the same as me. And all of these things that she was listing, it was ADHD awareness or neurodivergent awareness week. And all of these things that she was listing off resonated with me. And I thought, that's really bizarre. She's claiming she's got ADHD. I'm a grown woman. In my mind, ADHD is this naughty boy that can't stop fidgeting in a classroom, being really disruptive. That's how I see. Your perception of it, yeah. Yeah, that was and I thought, I wasn't like that in school, not that I remember. I don't remember being really fidgety and really hyperactive. I had friends that were, but I never thought that was me. So I never associated how I am with ADHD. So when I started doing some research, because when I've got something in my mind, I hyper-focus and that's it. That's all I'll read for days, get my head into the books. So I was doing all of this research on ADHD and all these assessments that are available to people online. And it became apparent that, okay, I am high category ADHD for it showing the traits of a woman. And I think the reason why it wasn't, or maybe these kind of traits haven't been detected before, is girls, especially in school, girls show up very differently to boys who have ADHD. Okay. So girls can be undetected until adulthood because the signs aren't neurotypical. So again, that fidgeting, that hyperactivity. So I never displayed any of that. All of the other things that is very typical in women, I was displaying, and I had these habits and these patterns throughout my life. And it was this kind of this light bulb moment of, that's why I'm like that, or that's why this person says I do this. And it was before I would be, oh, what's wrong with me? Just very critical, annoyed, angry, like just had frustration, like just so much frustration to think, why am I like this and this person isn't? Why can I not do that, but these people can? So much frustration. And when I started reading through all this information, I had a real sense of, oh, what a relief. Yeah. Like, what an absolute relief. The reason I've done this is because I couldn't do it any other way. The reason I kept jumping from this to this to this, relationship, jobs, is because that's the way my brain is programmed. Oh, wonderful. Thank goodness. Like, it was this moment of like pure relief because there was a reason behind the way I acted.
And we all need a why, don't we?
Well, yeah, and that's exactly what it was. But I think one of the turning points for me, one of the biggest moments was I was reading through a particular article and it said young girls, adolescents with ADHD are at a very high risk of eating disorders. And when I read that, I read this article, and I got to the end of this article, and I just broke down in tears. I just thought, oh my goodness. I had an eating disorder when I was a teenager, and it went on for about 20 years. And the first thing I thought when I was reading through all of this, all of the information on eating disorders and young girls, I could have got medicated and I could have saved myself 20 years of this disorder. Yes, I would have still had it, but I could have controlled it. And it consumed so much of my life. And it was this dirty little secret that I hid from everybody.
Yeah.
And it was the relief in that's why I was the way I was. Answers.
The pieces of the jigsaw coming together, isn't it?
It's having this unanswered question, this unanswered, why am I the way I am? Why am I different? Why does nobody else have this problem? I just felt like somebody just give me this book of the answers.
Yeah.
There you go. This is why you were the way you were. This is why you are the way that you are. And again, you can't change the past, but I thought if I only knew that, and even saying this out loud, I've probably got people in my family that still don't know this.
Yeah.
But the reason why I'm saying it out loud is because there is help for people. And I know that sounds so cliche, there is help. But sometimes you do things and you don't know why you do it.
Yeah.
And if you hear a story that's shared, like I read that post that this woman wrote, and every part of it resonated with me. And that made me take the action to do more research. And now I'm on a journey of being medicated. But it took me to read that, to resonate with somebody else's story, to think, okay, I'm actually not alone. This is normal.
Yeah.
Other people do experience this way. And you can put in that, there are so much support and so many methods that you can put in place to really help yourself and to understand yourself first and foremost. And not just because I want to put myself in a box, because everybody has very different symptoms and displays different traits and handles things very differently. But I think for me, it was, I've had years of therapy, I've had years of coaching, and I could never quite put my finger on why I was the way I was as a teenager with having an eating disorder. And I always just think, oh, it's because I'm tall, and my friends are tiny and petite, and if I eat, I don't want to be like even bigger than what I already am. So I put it down to just body dysmorphia, almost just feeling like I was different, and I was always bigger than everybody else. 5'10", by the way. But it wasn't that. There was so much more. There was so much more to it. I even thought, maybe I didn't feel very loved as a child. Maybe it's because I had a dysfunctional family, and always thinking that, was it this or was it this? And it was just something as simple as the way ADHD can show up as a young child. And again, it's, if you've got young girls, it's very difficult to detect if your daughter or if your niece or if your friend's child, it's very difficult to detect if they've got ADHD. It's much more evident in boys. In women, that's why there's so many, the statistics on how many women find out they've got ADHD as an adult is just fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's because it's when as they get older, I think when you start to recognize these patterns and these traits that I guess it shows up so much more. Like for me, it was losing things, the amount of phones I've lost, the amount of keys I lose, like anything that I could have on me, I'll lose it to almost to the point now people won't give me keys, or because they know I'll probably end up losing them. It's just, it's relentless. And I'll be, again, that frustration. Why am I like this? Why do I always lose things? Now I know. So it's like, it's an ongoing joke in our house now, just because I've got the answers. I've got the answers that I need. So I think, sometimes just sharing it, and for me as well, it was in the workplace, I would get overwhelmed really, really easily. And again, is it the imposter syndrome? Is it this? Is it this? But you can get ADHD burnout really, really quickly. So that can happen much quicker than someone that's not neurodiverse. So that the way that you deal with different emotions and so many different things happening at the same time, that can contribute to burnout like far quicker. And again, I never realized that back in the day. Whereas now, I can start to detect those patterns when they're coming. So I'm right, okay, I'm not doing this, and maybe I need to exercise more. Maybe I need to step away from my computer more. Maybe I need to talk to somebody. So it's about self-managing when you realize that those signs are coming. Whereas before, it would just be like this massive whirlwind, and I'd be like, gotta get out, can't handle it, and I'd go. Whereas now I don't need to do that because I can self-manage.
Yeah.
I understand those triggers. Like I know when those triggers are happening, and I can do something about it.
Yeah. I mean, wow. I mean, what the listeners won't know is we've been best friends for 30 years now. So it's quite a long time. And I actually feel quite emotional now, if I'm honest, just because it's hard for people to hold the mirror up, confront those demons. And even you saying, you know, there's members of your family that don't or aren't aware that you suffered with an eating disorder when you were younger. How courageous and brave are you to now openly talk about it with the intention of helping others and saying it's okay, there is a way through this, and it doesn't have to be a dirty secret, and it doesn't have to be something that you feel shame over, because you have your why at 41 years old. But there'll be people out there now that don't have their why, and that will be question marking who they are, why they're doing things. Are they different? Why are they so different to other people? And to know that they're not alone, to know that actually there is a way through that, and actually there is help, and there's signposting to support people to own these things and to get the right support and help is absolutely amazing. So thank you for being so honest about that. I think that's really, really important. What impact has getting your why had now, would you say, on your home life, general life? Like what's the impact? What's the consequences now for having the why in the locker?
For me, it is game changing, because I think if you don't know what problem you're trying to diagnose on a regular basis, then you're always going to be searching. You're always going to be unpicking in the wrong places. So for me, it's game changing because I look at my strengths as okay, this is the way I am. But guess what? My super strengths are being creative, building really deep and meaningful connections and relationships. I might lose a few things, but again, Who
needs keys?
Who needs keys? And who doesn't want to buy a new phone every now and then, or a new handbag, or I do it deliberately, my husband says. But I'm going back to owning something.
Yeah.
I can own it and I can accept it and move on. It's so easy for me to accept. And I think when you accept who you are, you can joke about things. And again, you can put things in place that will help you along the way. And just even like there's been even people that I speak to now that they're troubled, or they don't understand how to get past a certain obstacle or hurdle, and being able to help people and share a journey normalizes
Absolutely.
that we are all so very, very different. It completely normalizes it. It's like a person that I was speaking to recently. So not a lot of people know about the right to choose system.
Okay.
So whether it's neurodiversity, whether it's mental health in general, eating disorders, to go into the system, a lot of people avoid doing it because their waiting times are years. Yeah. As some of us may have experienced. And the best thing you can do for yourself is get help. Like, therapy. Most people I know have been in therapy. It's not something to feel embarrassed by. It's not something. I think it should be. It's something that every person should have in their life.
I agree.
Whether it's a coach or a therapist, if you've got things that you need to deal with in the past, therapy. If you want coping mechanisms, therapy. If you want to find out if you've got a trajectory you want to aim towards for the future, and you want to work through obstacles that are happening now, a coach. Why try and battle through things in your own mind when somebody can easily help you create an access or pathway out of that? Like, why take all that time unnecessarily to try and work it out yourself when you can get there quick with someone else?
Yeah.
But sometimes to get help, again, that process might seem really overwhelming. It might seem like it's going to take forever. But I found out about a right to choose. So, and what that means is it's the right to choose mental health. And it's almost like a fast track system that you can get through your doctors when you mention the right to choose program.
Okay.
And lots of cities all have their own right to choose partners. So if you go to the doctor and you say, okay, I want additional help, I might be struggling with whatever the mental health capacity is that you have, and so I would like to know more about the right to choose. And the waiting time is about 16 to 20 weeks.
Significantly less.
We're talking years.
Wow.
To weeks. So that hurdle that you might put it up at, like everyone will say, oh, if you go into the system for this, you'll be in there for years. I've been waiting for 5 years. Well, you don't need to, because people can't always afford to pay for therapists, to pay for whatever, medication. But with the right to choose, everybody in the UK has the right to choose, or has the right to have access to mental health.
That's incredible.
So let's not put up barriers to help make yourself better, because too many people are suffering in silence when they really shouldn't be, and they really don't have to be. And I think you'd be surprised how many people will reach out to you, friends, family, colleagues, leaders, if you are just open and say, this is what I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
I'm going to be working on this. I might just need some extra help.
100%. And just
courageous.
Just knowing, again, it's knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
Having that in your locker, knowing that is an option. Because I guarantee there'll be so many people out there right now and not know that existed. I didn't know that existed. So that's amazing to know that actually there is additional help that does speed up a process for you to get on the path, much like you. And that's quite liberating as well, isn't it? Because you're taking control over your own life, and you're on that journey now to be medicated, which is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. I mean, I was going to say, in terms of your achievement, that feels like a big achievement. But if you were to pinpoint like the biggest achievement in your life, what would you say it is and why?
I think it's hard to pinpoint one, because there are, I guess, different achievements for different decades. Yep. So I think to say one in your life, it's what I might have thought was a really big achievement might have been gazumped by something else for a completely different reason.
Yeah.
I think when you talk about in the beginning, professional, personal, and emotional, I think you can have really big achievements on all three of those areas. So for me, perhaps professionally, it may be like my coaching business and becoming a coach and actually working with people that really want to develop themselves. I thrive in those environments. I love watching other people grow and develop, because I think there are too many people out there that try and hinder that. So if I can help people open up their own gateways, I absolutely thrive in that area. So for me to be able to do that in a profession, massive achievement.
Yeah.
I think personally, again, it's probably a cliche thing that people say with their families, but I think the position I'm in with my family at the moment, we get the opportunity to travel. We've been to some like absolutely beautiful places. We're all healthy. We're all fit. I think just to have a healthy family, and to all be here to still tell the story, is a big achievement. We both lost people very, very dear to us at a ridiculously young age. So, I think personally, just being healthy, being fit, being able to travel, I'm just very, very grateful to be able to do that every single day. And emotionally, I think having the courage and confidence to be okay with who I am and not want to pretend to be something that I think other people want me to be. It's almost like, screw you, this is me. Like, this is me. And I think it takes decades to get to the stage of life. Like, if I think how I was when I was in my 20s, haven't changed my work ethic. I'm still really, really hardworking, but I am pleasing myself and I'm not other people.
Which is a biggie, I think, for a lot of people, isn't it? It's to stop the people pleaser in you and to put yourself first and not see that as a selfish thing.
Yeah.
That it's a necessity as opposed to something that's selfish. I think you're only going to become the best version of yourself when you invest in you.
Yeah.
That inevitably helps others. But seeing that and believing that takes a long time, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, those in those kind of areas, I'm thankful for the achievements that my children have. I'm thankful for the things that we get to do as a family. And business-wise, I'm thankful to be able to choose the people that I want to work with. So I think all those things just feel like one big achievement that's broken down into these kind of, I guess, micro segments.
I love that. Okay, you picked 2 vulnerability cards before we come on air. So, first one was, when was the last time you felt vulnerable, and how did you deal with your emotions?
So going back to professionally, so when I first set up my coaching business, I felt extremely vulnerable. And the reason being is I was very exposed to the world. You're not hiding behind a company, you are the company. And for me, the vulnerability was, what if people don't want to work with me? Or what if people don't like my service? Or what if people don't feel like they're getting value? And it was that self-doubt. It was that imposter really kicking in. But I noticed in myself that I needed to validate myself. I needed to reassure myself. I went through coaching to understand what it was that was making me feel so debilitated and almost suffocated, when all I ever wanted was the freedom to be able to choose the life that I wanted. And then I was given it, and I felt very vulnerable. So to answer the question, what I did to get over that was coaching, and that really helped just get rid of that internal critic and have my own coping mechanisms to get through each day. And again, whether that was just simple things like journaling, and people, journaling's not for me. It really does work, and there's lots of science behind why journaling does work. Meditation, again, all sounds very airy-fairy, but it really does work. It helps declutter what's going on in your mind. It helps give you focus. So all of those things take time, they take effort, they take practice. Like going to the gym, you're not going to get big muscles overnight if you don't put in that dedication and that work. And that's really what I did to help overcome that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what's really interesting about what you've just said there is your coaching business, you're the coach, but the coach needs a coach.
Absolutely.
And again, this is, I think, where people don't realise is everyone needs an outlet.
Yes.
Everyone needs a level of support and somewhere to offload emotionally and talk about their day and talk about their worries and talk about their fears, because actually that's how you grow. And actually there's an assumption that, you're the coach, you should know everything and you should feel confident, but we're human beings and we need an appropriate outlet for us to get stronger. So that's amazing that actually how you dealt with your vulnerability was to get a coach to help you coach, which is just, it's amazing.
Completely. And if you look at athletes, athletes, they are absolutely phenomenal at what they do. They're sprinters, they're whatever they do, like basketballers. They don't say, I'm really great at the sport, so I don't need a coach. They continually get coaches to help them improve any areas of development that they need. So
they don't get there by chance, do they?
No, you've always got to look in and just see. If you're not on your own development journey, you're going to get stale and stagnant.
Yeah, 100%. Love that. Okay, second card you picked was, who has been the most inspiring influence in your life and why? Has this inevitably impacted how you show up?
So this is a easy one for me, and it's going to be a very awkward one for you.
I'm already feeling very awkward.
Let me see if I can make you squirm in your chair a little bit. And the reason why it's easy for me, because the reference is people in your life. So I could say, I could talk about a celebrity, I could talk about somebody who's gone on and done like fantastic things with world peace, or the typical things I think that people sometimes say. But when I look at my life and what's happened in my life and why I've changed doing things the way I've done, or why I've even become a better or different person, I've got to look at who's been on that journey with me and where that realness comes from, that rawness, that the authenticness, because you can look at somebody else's journey and actually you don't really know how true their journey is. Yes, they've gone on to achieve amazing things and it looks amazing and you're in awe and you're in, Simon Sinek. Oh, I'd love the guy to come around for dinner. Absolutely love him. But but I don't really know his journey
Yeah.
to get to where. Yes, he's very inspiring. I think he's a fantastic leader, and I hang off his every word. But it's not that feel, felt, found effect. I don't really know where he's come from. Whereas you, young lady, as the listeners know, so we've known each other for 30 years, and our backgrounds are very similar.
Yeah.
We were both brought up on council estates.
We were indeed.
We both went to probably one of the roughest schools in our areas.
No shame, no shame, Danni.
And surrounded by probably not very nice people growing up.
Yeah.
But I think what just inspires me the most is you were never given anything. You were never given wealth. You were never given opportunity. Everything you did, you fought goddamn hard for. You got yourself out of a position of, when I say poverty, I mean in terms of the areas that we lived, and you've absolutely thrived. You've faced adversity more than anybody I know, and you have knocked down every single one of those challenges, every single one of those people that doubted you. Every single very difficult thing you've had to deal with and manage, you've come out shining, smiling, and being positive and trying to help reinforce other people. And I'm not just talking like your business, I'm talking charity work, I'm talking you went through like a messy divorce, but still came out with positivity and still trying to look on the better side of things, never victimize yourself. And I think it's moments like that I almost feel like, who is picking you up? Like you pick everybody else up, like constantly picking people up, trying to help people towards their own North Star, but you never want anything back from anyone else. And I'm not saying you should do, I'm not saying, it's give to receive, but it's so selfless. And I would have crumbled so many more times than you have, but you just pick yourself up and you go. Get knocked back, you pick yourself up and you go. And you've had to fight against some nasty demons in your past as well. And the admiration, and when I say it's impacted my life, it's because you are who you surround yourself by. And every time I'm around you, I feel uplifted. I feel ready to take on the next thing. And I owe a lot to you.
Oh God, Danni, this is not about me. This is not about me. This is about you. But my goodness.
But that's you asked me for my inspiration,
and
that genuinely is, that comes from a very real and raw place.
Yeah.
And there's nothing disingenuous about it.
Well, I'm very grateful for you too. So thanks. But this is not about me. But okay, fab. Closing question then for you. So you've shared a lot, and I'm really grateful that you have. So you've opened up in terms of eating disorder, neurodiverse, imposter syndrome, some really big, hard-hitting areas, which I've no doubt my mind's going to resonate with so many people, and I really appreciate your openness and honesty on that. If you had any final thoughts, parting words, or sort of those kind of nuggets of wisdom that you could leave our listeners with, what would it be?
So I would say know and embrace your superpowers, because everybody has them. There's not one human being out there that doesn't have a superpower. So know what it is, work on it, build it, shout about it, tell people about it, own it, embrace it. Because it doesn't matter who you are, what you're up against, what you feel your faults are, you will have a superpower. If you don't know what it is yet, then I'm so excited for you to get on that journey and find it. But once you find it, own it and embrace it, because it's there in all of us. We've just got to acknowledge it and be authentic about it, and not feel ashamed to talk about it.
Yeah.
So own that strength.
Love that. Well, you are my hero, and I'm very proud of you, and I really appreciate you coming today and talking so honestly about your journey. And I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, you've made it very easy, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Danni.
Thank you.